You can listen to The Professional Left wherever you get your podcasts, on Netroots Radio, or at our website, proleftpod.com, where you can also contribute to this podcast. There's a PayPal button at our website, or you can mail us a letter and or contribution at P.O. Box 9133, Springfield, Illinois, 62791.
This is the podcast for December 24th, 2021. It's not safe for work.
Recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where a large boom in the sky might mean a fighter jet breaking the sound barrier, or Rod Blagojevich lighting a fart, or Lincoln's head exploding. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, everybody. I thought for historical purposes, we should remind people how we launched our last two Christmas shows.
Okay.
So, number one, recorded live from the world headquarters of the Cornfield Resistance, where we thought we spotted Santa this morning, but it turned out to be a jolly old New York Times reporter here to interview Trump voters in diners. It's The Professional Left with Driftglass and Blue Gal.
So that was 2020?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
And 2019, recorded live from the Cornfield Resistance, where our local impeachment rally was smallish but lively. And that is history.
Figure.
That's history, boys and girls. That's the history of journalism and the history of impeaching Trump and all the failed attempts to do that, all wrapped up in a little bow for you for Christmas.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
And we did have a sonic boom in Springfield this week.
We did.
I think it was 2 days ago.
It was a great big mystery, and people popped their heads out of their doors, and we had like we were living in a Arkansas holler. We were yelling back and forth across the street. What was that? Is that my house? Is that your house? And we thought, there's a meteor shower that peaked on that day too. So we thought maybe a meteor had, boomed near us, or a power plant had exploded, or freight trains had exploded. But it turns out it was a fighter jet passing overhead, hitting, passing the sound barrier at just the right moment. But it shook.
And shook countywide. I mean, it was very, very widespread. And we got a voicemail from emergency services saying, please, for the love of God, stop calling 911 about the boom.
Dude.
We know about the boom.
Yes. And there was at first there was, this is where it gets to be fun and conspiratorial. At first, there was any denial that there was anything going on in the sky at all. And then it's like, well, wait a minute, I saw a plane veer around, and Twitter just sort of leaped into action, as Twitter will do. And it became they're lying to us. And it turned out it was a fighter jet overhead, doing what fighter jets do, but they shouldn't have done it around here. And they should have warned people in advance if they're going to do it, because it was very loud. I mean,
it shook windows. It shook windows.
I thought something big had hit our house.
Literally.
And like a body. It sounded like something heavy being thrown against the wall. And once a couple of neighbors said, that happened to me too, I thought, aha, this isn't just me. Mm-hmm. So I can stop looking on the roof.
And I went on, as I very rarely do anymore, but I went on Nextdoor to find out whether people were blaming brown people in the alley behind their house for it, because that's what they blame everything on.
Yeah.
On Nextdoor. The thing that it reminded me of, that kind of hour and a half when we didn't know what it was, and especially the first few minutes after it happened.
The 2016 election?
No, it reminded me of what I have heard War of the Worlds was like when the recording, and we have been through so much in the past 2 years, in terms of just fearing for your life, whether it's shootings or COVID or climate change or huge weather situations. It seems like everyone's nerves are just about shot.
Or Aryan Nazis running people down in their car, or
unbelievable. The news is all that kind of threat level. And 1938, when Orson Welles was just claiming that he was just doing a radio show, and he knew what was going on. Yeah, behind, outside the studio. But
after
they kept
the first
recording.
few minutes, he was perfectly
he was like,
aware.
"Oh, this is great!
Yeah, this is wonderful."
But 1938, all the news from Europe was horrible.
Yeah, yes, it was.
And we had depression. 37 was a terrible year for the economy. Horrible. And people were just assuming that whatever it was something horrible out to destroy humanity.
Yeah. And it was
taking that leap.
And it was the level of detail in the story. It was Grover's Mill, New Jersey.
Yeah.
And it was a reporter. And it was designed to sound like a news broadcast.
Right. And being interrupted. Music being interrupted by that. And very well done. Yeah.
And it was the slow breaking news. We're not sure what happened. Something has happened. There's a thing. We're investigating. The thing appears to be moving. And oh my God. And then, which is how news broke over the radio.
Right. And everyone taking to social media and wondering what it was.
Yeah.
After 45 minutes when we knew that we were not going to be evacuated because it was a chemical spill.
Right.
I mean, that was my number one fear. Was, oh God, it's a chemical spill. Something exploded. Yeah. Everyone thought that maybe the power plant had another explosion because that happened here in Springfield, years ago.
But it sure makes the neighbors come out.
It makes the neighbors come out, but they come out because we're all primed for some sort of disaster to hit. And that's not a good way to go through day-to-day existence. It's really hard.
And shouting, getting shouts from across the street about, what do you think it is? Like, yeah, this is how things start.
Well, and we have people on our street that have signs nailed to the tree about, I'm not woke.
Right.
So... And when I started to retweet people who were asking about the boom, I checked everybody's bio because I didn't want to retweet some MAGA nut.
Right.
I didn't want to be involved with that. So we're all just kind of on edge. And, after half an hour when we weren't being asked to evacuate and the power wasn't interrupted at all, I figured, okay. It's something in the sky. There's an explanation for it that they'll come up with, and they did, and that's it. But
this and the more benign end of that, it reminded me of power failures when I lived in Chicago. Where it was
a transformer blew. Yeah,
it was something blew out, and the first question is it me? Check the fuses. Is it my building? Because I lived in a condo building. And then are lights on anywhere? And then you walk outside, usually and there's 20 other neighbors, all with flashlights.
Walking on the sidewalk for the first time in 2 years.
And now it's like, okay, we're going to dispatch people to the corners to see how far the darkness extends. And, from this, you could take, Rod Serling takes The Monsters Are Due on Maple Street.
Yeah, right.
It's once you get people a little bit edgy, get them in the street, mess with their power, something weird's happening, you can crank up that paranoia so fast.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're not doing that today. Today, we're just celebrating the fact that we're still here. It's episode 630. Can you believe it?
Can you believe that?
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful.
And
we're so glad to be here.
I have returned to Twitter in honor of this.
Yeah, this is the Zapodan miracle. Zapodan ended on December 21st.
It did.
As it always does every year. But during that time, we had a Zapodan miracle. Genuine Zapodan miracle.
I did the thing that the Twitter police tell you explicitly you are not allowed to do. Because I was banned from Twitter for calling someone trash a year ago, almost exactly a year ago. It was January, but it was a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And for stupid stuff that, flies past, all day long that no blue check I know has ever gotten dinged for at all, ever. And I've
Rick Wilson alone has done 45 times that. Yes.
Yeah, in a week.
In a week, yeah.
And I had been to Twitter jail a few times for, innocuous things.
I think that was why you got banned for life.
Yeah.
So you hit the number. Yeah.
And I also think it's pretty clear I had little shadows out there who were reporting me, digging through old tweets, reporting me. Because some of my stuff had, when I first went to Twitter jail, it was calling Bill Maher a whore.
Oh, yeah.
Which Bill Maher, that's the language Bill Maher uses. That's the language lots of people use. Nobody is, to my knowledge, has ever been banned from Twitter for a week for doing that. But it's clear that people didn't like me on Twitter and were digging through my archives looking for, see, he did it again. Anyway, so I was gone. And I appealed my case like 2 or 3 times.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a process for that. And each time they said, nope, it's justified. You're gone forever. And the last time it was, you are not allowed to appeal your case ever again. Your appeals are done. You've used them all up. You can't appeal this case. You've reached the Supreme Court. Jack himself has decided thou shalt never be on Twitter again.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
and then Jack retired.
Jack retired.
Right.
And I thought, hey, here's my chance. because, his beard game was getting weak and I was making fun of it. And then I just said, well, what the hell? What are they going to do? Throw me in deeper in Twitter jail? Super duper ban me? I appealed it. And a few hours later, it's like, you know what? You didn't violate our rules. You're back. Like, what? No explanation. No, like, yeah, you had a bunch of trolls on your ass. And, that tipped the algorithm. It was just like, oops, nope, you didn't violate anything. You were not in violation of any rules. Really? Because a year ago, you said very clearly that I was. And I asked repeatedly, and you told me over and over again that I was. So part of me is dying to know what changed.
Yeah.
And part of me is like, what?
It's Zapodan,
Yeah,
I really just chalk it up to a Zapodan miracle. And glad to have you back on Twitter. And glad that your followers are back. And yeah.
And then shortly after I returned from Twitter jail, there was a huge explosion in our area. So I wonder, I kind of wonder if I just didn't damage space-time.
As long as they never allow Trump back on, I'm good with it.
I'm fine. With it.
That's the thing.
But, there are not rules. These are not laws of nature, boys and girls. These are just rules that corporations and individuals and governments set up, and they are apparently pretty flexible if you just hit them at exactly the right moment. So I believe in Zapodan.
We need to just briefly mention this week was also the Turning Point USA conference and Nazi rally.
The Talking Point USA, yeah.
Toilet Paper USA. There is an appreciative audience on the right for actual violent rhetoric. I don't think I need to say that to anyone.
And actual violence.
And Anthony Fauci is their Emmanuel Goldstein. There is no doubt about that. That what Jesse Waters, Jesse Waters said about Anthony Fauci and that threat and so forth. That's par for the course from that venue.
Has everyone forgotten Glenn Beck?
Yes, everyone has forgotten Glenn Beck.
And who? Don't know who he is. Isn't he a never Trumper now? Isn't he an ally now? Oh, that was 5 minutes ago.
They have forgotten what that cult was, and that was a cult.
Yeah.
And I also, and this is not excusing any of the words that came from that stage, because the words that came from that stage were designed to please the audience. But there was also clearly an open bar in the green room.
Yes.
That turned off the filters for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Who might have tempered their words. I'm not excusing any of the racism or violence, because they clearly wanted to do that.
Well, we learned
there was also
this week
a bar.
that antihistamines cause racism, or
it was right. I took a sedative, and that's why I'm using the N-word repeatedly.
That's what made me. So apparently, the Judge Jeanine Pirro open bar makes people into violent sociopaths.
Well, and what I found ironic, and again, I think you use the word trash. I think trash is a good word to use. Trash pile USA for this well-funded, everybody got to go conference. Nobody went to Arizona on their own dime for that. No. It was James O'Keefe went, and the two worst congresswomen and all the people went. All Charlie got Kirk, flown there and put up and given booze. That on some billionaire's dime. To recruit college students. And, and the number of people on stage telling people to drop out of college was also... anyway. But the irony of they attempted to have a training session the first day of the conference on how to behave on social media.
Let me guess. It was a lecture on From Russell Kirk to Charlie Kirk, the history of conservative intellectuals. But nobody came, so don't shut it down. Yeah.
Well, the slide said, don't be racist, don't be violent.
Yeah. Wow.
Be cautious in what you post, and don't retweet people that you don't know, and on and on. It's like, wow, boy, you just can't. So, but this is what, none of this happens by accident.
No,
all that they said and all that they put out was for an audience that they knew that would resonate. And it's very dangerous and sad, but it's who they are. So I want to see more in the coming year, this election year, calling that out and asking these candidates for House seats in particular Do you stand by this? Are you for, shooting Anthony Fauci?
Okay.
Is that what you think?
I'll give you a free, because I love you and you're my wife. I'll give you a free preview of the debate where that question is asked.
Okay.
Go ahead and ask me that question. I'm running for the wingnut seat in
and you've won the primary.
Arkansas.
We're assuming you've won the primary. You're a Trumper and you've won the primary.
Won the primary, and I'm gearing up, ready to go.
Who's the president of the United States right now?
I steadfastly oppose the Biden socialist agenda, and I refuse to be baited into some sort of gotcha question by the liberal media.
Yeah, there you go.
Only care. It's not. Yeah. It's a fucking 12 lines of code that's in their head.
Right.
That's how. So I am exhausted with people who keep thinking that there'll be an aha moment, that the press will wave a finger and wag it just the right way, and some wingnut who ran on liquidate the left will have an aha moment to go, you're right. That moment at the end of Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, where Senator Payne goes, that young man is right. I'm 100% wrong, and I'm unfit
he runs
to
out
serve.
And shoots himself in the head. No, not going to happen.
He tries to. That is never going to happen, ever, ever, ever. And which leads me to my next point, if you don't mind.
No, go right ahead.
That there's a serious lack of and then what thinking on the left. I am exhausted with people who I like very much and whose politics I agree with, like Rob Reiner. I was listening to a rerun of him on the Stephanie Miller Show, and he went through a list of the things that must happen. And he said it with all that kind of skill and craft that a director, actor, etc. of long experience can bring to the word must. Must. And he listed a bunch of shit that's never going to happen. Never going to happen. And I'm like, okay, fine. That's great. You can wish for unicorns to fly out of Joe Biden's ass, and you can wish for Green Lantern powers, and you can wish for Joe Manchin to wake up one day and suddenly discover that he's a black man. And it's a Godfrey Cambridge story. And he suddenly has a fucking realization that he's been an asshole his whole life. Yeah. But of course, then his party runs him out of town and puts Boss Hogg in charge. But none of that's going to happen. So since none of that's going to happen, Joe Biden is not going to nationalize the coal industry. You know what? That's not going to happen. So since that's not going to happen, what then what? Then what? And the answer is always sort of fish shaking and change the subject, because you don't have an answer. These people do not have an answer for what happens. And that's why I really think that you need to borrow two of us, because we're both writers and we like science fiction. Get Katie Porter to loan us her whiteboard, and we will sketch out what the future might actually look like over the next 4 years.
Now, from a science fiction perspective,
from a let's take a rational look. Let's do a Robert Heinlein, future history check-in on what the future might actually look like, and what would happen if we lose control of the House. What happens then? What happens if we lose control of the House and the Senate? What does the media do? And how shall we react to that rather than shock and complete confusion? Because the degree to which both you and I were just flattened when Trump won. Yeah. Flattened. Just, oh my God. This country really is as fucked up as all that. And honestly, 4 years later, we were sort of like, this could happen again. This could happen again. And you know what? What was it? 10 million more people looked at that racist scumbag for 4 years, saw him do all those horrible, hideous shit that he did, killing people, lying about everything. And not taking
any responsibility. They wanted to drink bleach, inject bleach.
And 8 million more people came out for him than the last time.
Right.
That's the actual country we live in. Those people are not going to go anywhere. Those people are, I hate to put it this way, the enemy. We are in a war, and those people are the enemy, and they're not going to wake up, and they're not going to come to their senses, and Joe Biden's not going to pull some magic secret power out of his ass that will fix it. So what happens when fascists take over the House of Representatives? And I think we all need to do some real serious thinking, not some depressing, like, oh, fuck, we're screwed, but some real serious thinking about what we do, like preparing for a hurricane. There's some really sort of practical, serious things that we need to do to look past that point and see what we can do to leverage that to our advantage. But the idea that the media is ever going to call these people out for anything is dead. There's no media that's going to help us. There's no left-wing media that's going to help us. The MSNBC will hire back, Hugh Hewitt. That's all of the things, all of the we must do thus and so things that we're so eager to have happen are never going to happen.
Well, and so, my goal for 2022 is 2 more Democratic senators at least.
Absolutely. Very simple, practical, clear-headed. Very simple, practical
things. And pray for and fight for a 50% plus 1 House of Representatives.
Yes, I'll take that all day long.
Because then you get Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi for 2 more years, and you get the committee chairs.
Right.
And that's really all you can hope for.
Yes.
In a midterm election when Democrats have run the tables. But and right now, if we don't do a voting rights bill, and that's the big thing.
I don't think it's in the cards. I don't think Joe Manchin is going to budge. I hope somebody has enough, leverage over him to bend him on that. But I don't think they're going to budge.
I don't know. He was Secretary of State of Virginia and seems to care about voting. Also,
cinema,
Well, I know. But also, it's Amy Klobuchar who's really taken on the compromise position on this. And I talked to you about this last night, about how we as voting rights activists are pushing for everything. And I use the example with you of environmental activists that even if Joe Biden undoes everything Trump ever did regarding the environment, plus 50%, does 50% better than anything we've ever had on climate change and the environment, it's not enough.
Right.
And environmental activists, their job is to push for 110% of what they want.
All the time. All the time. Mm-hmm.
And that's their job. And that's good. They should, more power to those of us that do that kind of work. And your ex-wife was that way about feeding the hungry.
Right,
I mean,
absolutely.
Clinton couldn't do enough. And she was not going to allow him to be thanked for anything until she got 110% of what she wanted, because that was her job.
That's right.
Okay. So voting rights activists are the same way. They want everybody to be able to vote by mail. They want everybody to be able to vote. They want, no prior. No. You should have same-day registration. You should have same-day registration everywhere. You shouldn't
Election
have to
day's a holiday.
Election day is a holiday. Right. All of it. And we were pushing for 110% of that. Anything less is voter suppression.
Right.
That is the rhetoric we need to get where we can get this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm telling you, what Amy Klobuchar is pushing for isn't all of that.
No,
she's not going to get all of that from Joe Manchin.
Right.
But what she hopefully will get is enough voting rights legislation so that the voter suppression is tampered down.
Right. Frankly,
that's the best you can hope for in a 50-50 Senate with 2 assholes on our side.
That's absolutely true. And that is it is vital for people on our side, the brain trust of the left, which honestly is you and me and our listeners. There might be 3
other people.
There might be a few others out there, but honestly, it's just this crew right here. Need to be able to hold in their mind the hopeful, ideal, long-term vision thing. Mm-hmm. Here's our goal. Here's where we want to be. Here's what, we're having our visioning session. Where do we want the country to be? That's great. And we have to have in the same brain at the same time the practical, math-based, what can we actually get done given the hand we have been dealt? Mm-hmm. And if we don't like the hand we've been dealt, how do we change the game? How do we change the way the cards are distributed? And not pretend that, what we're going to do is we're going to make D.C. and Puerto Rico a state. That's never going to happen. In your lifetime, that is not going to happen because you need
4 or 5 more Democratic senators. It might happen.
Well, yeah. But
maybe we'll get there. Maybe we will get there someday.
But someday, absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. Part of that is, of course, Puerto Rico should have states' rights. Of course, D.C. should be a state. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying a thing should happen doesn't end your responsibility.
Right.
And saying that, and getting on Twitter and saying a bunch of shit about what must happen when it's not going to happen.
Yeah, the word shooting all over the Democratic Party is what it is. Yes,
Can I tell you a short story, very short story?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Once upon a time, when I was in senior management at the city of Chicago, I would be in senior staff meetings once a week. And this went on for years. And it was a whole bunch of problems and wishful thinking, and someone should do something. And, it's really important that thus and so had happened. And then the meeting would adjourn. and nobody would have any idea who was assigned to what or who was responsible for what. And the next week we come together and the commissioner would say, okay, what about blah, 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 blah. Well, none of it got done. Well, why? Well, we didn't decide who was supposed to do anything. And then there'd be another meeting about, well, this should happen and that should happen. And someone should take care of this and someone should take care of that. Meeting adjourned. Next week. Okay, did any of this shit get done? Of course not. Because everybody wants to say that someone else should take care of the problem.
That is organizational management 101. Absolutely.
Or the Democrats should do thus and so. Well, the Democrats are doing thus and so. There's two of them that aren't. So you don't mean the Democrats. You mean Manchin and Sinema, a bone in the throat of our party. What do we do about it? Well, the media should be thus and so, but it's not. And it never will be.
The media should really crack me up.
But it isn't, and it never will be. So what, and that's what I meant by the start of this little portion. And then what? Once you accept the fact the media is going to fuck you over every single time and never carry your message, and it doesn't matter how many speeches Democrats make, they're not going to cover anything but Democrats in disarray. And you can wave your hand about messaging all you want. And Democrats should go on TV more. Really, where?
Yeah.
What station is going to carry them to the length that you want, ask them the questions you want, give them the breadth?
And you're not noticing the number of times that Pramila Jayapal has been on television this week.
Yeah, and she hasn't been on television. She's been on MSNBC.
Yeah, but she's been on and they've given her 10 minutes, 12 minutes long segments to talk about Joe Manchin and the future and so forth.
I agree. But the people I'm talking about are the ones who think the people out there need to be made aware of blah, blah, blah. Okay, through what mechanism do you plan to make the people? Well, more speeches. Speeches from where? Those people aren't getting their news from MSNBC. And from
and you and I switch to Fox every once in a while to see what's going on.
Yeah, or the national
news. And the
Fox
viewers are not switching to Rachel Maddow to read the Chiron and laugh. They're not.
So when I hear, our never Trump allies saying, Democrats are stupid, what they should do is disaggregate. Build Back Better was never going to pass. Take it apart and pass it in, and have each individual thing voted on. What? So that they can each die painful individual deaths and demoralizing deaths at the hands of Joe Manchin.
That'll look really good in November.
Sure. Right. You got one bill voted down. Oh, no, we got 70 bills voted down.
Yeah.
Thanks to 50 Republicans and Joe fucking Manchin. Oh, that's better somehow? I'm not sure how that's better. So what we actually need are people, and this is the solution that made me hugely unpopular at the city, which was I sat down with the commissioner and said, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take notes at each meeting, and at the end of each meeting, we're going to reserve 10 minutes to assign shit to people. So that when Richard says, someone should fix all the problems of workforce development by next month. Richard, are you volunteering to do that? Oh, no, that's not me. Well, who do you think should do that? And then we'll have an actual discussion about what practically can be done in the time we have, given the staff.
With the resources you've got. Yeah.
And I would be the one who would go around the room and say, okay, Brian, you said thus and so. Are you volunteering to do this? Well, and then the commissioner would, look death at him. And I guess so. I said, okay, next week you're going to come back and tell us what progress you made on thus and so. And he would look at me like, you fucker.
Yeah, well, that's why you got fired.
You've broken the code. We're not supposed to do anything. We're just supposed to talk about shit.
Right.
And what infuriates me.
Well, and the other part of it was that everybody wanted to make it a technology problem, which put it in your lap. Well, I know that. Yeah.
Everyone wants to make it a messaging problem. Democrats should message better. Democrats have great messengers. As we've said before, we have a warehouse full of armor-piercing shells and no means of delivering them because there is no liberal media to plug any of this into.
Can I make a comment about Mark Elias, who said today reporters who are using both sides to talk about illegal maps need to take a good hard look in the mirror. And I just wanted to say, I love Mark Elias. The view of the mirror for reporters and cable news people is blocked by their paycheck.
Yeah.
Every time.
Yeah. The view of the reporters who write this sort of shit, and there's plenty of good reporters out there who are doing good work in the trenches. But these people are the ones who are like, the flood water will never reach me.
Yeah.
I'm safe. Yeah. My 401k is safe. My career is safe. And if I want to stay with my nose above water, I'd better just keep my head down and talk about both sides. And that's what happens. Now, you want to talk a little bit about a guy named Joe Manchin, I think his name is. Is that right?
I don't really want to talk about Joe Manchin, except to say that he betrayed the president of the United States of his own party this week.
Yes, he did.
And went on fucking Fox to do it. That's a gigantic fuck you to your own party.
Mm-hmm.
And I am glad, again, that Pramila Jayapal has a respectful relationship with Joe Manchin, and she's continuing to talk to him. Mm-hmm. Apparently, she's put some fear in his undies as well, because he called her after his appearance on Fox to continue the conversation. So I do sense that we have, an angel warrior on our side with her.
Oh, yeah. And she is, as we said to each other just last night, watching her on the liberal media. She is really good at this.
She's really good at this.
She's really good at
She doesn't crack. She really keeps moving forward, looking at how we can get things done.
Right.
Now she's working with Joe Biden to pressure him to say, look, some of this you can do by executive order.
Sure.
And it's probably time to do that, Joe. Let's do that. Well,
and she kind of embodies. A lot of them do. I don't want to single just her out. She's doing great. Katie Porter's another one who's just awesome at this, who has a very clear idea of what should exist in the world and a very clear idea of what is possible to exist right now and get done right now.
And also a sense of who they are and what their values are, and they live their values. And that's just a wonderful thing to see.
And is always looking for a path between them. Always looking for another way to get further down the road. They never give up. They never... this is the legacy of Lewis and of King. They never gave up. You can draw blood, you can hit me on the head, and I'm just going to keep coming because I know what this world should look like, and it doesn't look like that. Right. And I'm going to use every path available to me. I'm going to create doors where there aren't any to get forward. And I realize, I'm going to go forward a bit, and there'll be a big ass backlash. And because that's how that's this country. There, as we said, there are 70 million assholes out there who think Donald Trump walks on water and only get mad at him when he tells them something they don't want to hear.
Tells them that vaccines work.
Right.
Which he
That's
did
when
this
they freak
week.
out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead and talk about Dick Armey and the Koch brothers.
Well, there are, and this is sort of a lead into what I'd like you to talk about. It's just that on the right now, among the intellectual elite, the cream of the crop, really, the big thinkers on the right, a number of them are trying to do what Dick Armey and the Koch brothers did with the fake Tea Party. They're trying to come up with a narrative for Republicans in which they can keep all their wingnut base fired up and in their brown shirts and goose-stepping along towards a fascist future, but navigate around all the inconvenient facts of the Trump years. And this is just another, crap, we really shit the bed, didn't we? Yeah, well, let's invent a movement that will allow us to consolidate and keep all the gains we made during the last Republican debacle, blame the Democrats for whatever, and continue moving towards the bright fascist future that we all want. And that brings us to the subject of Chris Christie and Newt Gingrich. Yeah,
who both have books out. And, Chris Christie's book was a huge fail.
Yes, it was.
But it is interesting. I wrote about Newt Gingrich's new book this week. On the one hand, Chris Christie's book is entitled Republican Rescue, Saving the Party from Truth Deniers, Conspiracy Theorists, and the Dangerous Policies of Joe Biden.
Both sides. You mean both sides are to blame, Blue Gal?
Both sides are to blame, Driftglass. And we have truth deniers and conspiracy theorists who are damaging the Republican brand. We need to fix that. That's no one wants to buy that book.
No.
It's shocking, but true. Right. There's no one that wants that message. So someone with a much, and I say this cautiously because I'm about to say something, complimentary about Newt Gingrich, but we've done it before. Newt Gingrich has his finger on the pulse of the dimwits in his party better than anybody. And so Newt Gingrich's book is called Beyond Biden, Rebuilding the America We Love.
That's right. Biden's the problem. Biden
is definitely the problem. And I read the first chapter of this Newt Gingrich book, in the preview on Amazon. Newt Gingrich mentions Trump in one paragraph about the vaccines.
Yes.
That President Trump was responsible for the vaccine. He got it done. It was going to take, he runs the line of it was going to take 5 years, and Donald Trump got it done in 1 year. He's amazing. He's, thank you, President Trump, for doing that. Okay. the rest of the chapter is Reagan, 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 Reagan.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And just forget that everything else in the Trump administration ever happened. And that's exactly what, as you say, what the people on the right who are, in charge of or have the billionaire dollars to do the rebranding, which we predicted in 2015.
Oh, yeah.
Before Trump won a single primary, we knew that if Trump was going to be the
face of the GOP,
face of the Republican Party, that they were going to have to rebrand from that.
Around it. They're going to have to salvage what they liked about it, which was all the fascism and loosening our belts. Now we can just talk about whatever we want and not get in any trouble.
And I did a Photoshop of you own this. Republican Party, you own this. When they were doing the health care and trying to take away Obamacare from everybody. Right. I did a Photoshop of Trump in the Rose Garden with every Republican. Saying, you own this. There will be no rebranding, no third way, no Tea Party. Forget it. You own this. And what I didn't realize is they're not going to rebrand.
No.
At all. They're going to invade the Capitol and have a violent outburst about it. But it's only now that, and this is absolutely, when you see Newt Gingrich's book, you go, they really are trying to distance themselves now.
Well, there's, as the metaphor we've used 1,000 times. They're picking up that Etch-a-Sketch and just shaking it like mad.
And that's the metaphor I used in my post. Yeah.
Never happened.
Newt Gingrich knows how to shake the Etch-a-Sketch of the Republican brain.
Yep.
And how you do it is you say, we will win again because we are the party of Ronald Reagan.
And you can just hear, I can just hear in my little inner ear, at least 5 or 6 never Trumpers going, Reagan. I remember Reagan. Reagan
Those were so nice. Good days.
Oh, if only we could get back to the Reagan days. But they're all poking. They're trying to find a way forward. They're all poking around, trying to find a way so they can keep what they got, keep what they've stolen, keep the wingnuts and the brown shirts and the Proud Boys happy, because that's the base. You can't win without the base, and move forward in a way that sort of absolves themselves and absolves the vast number of goose-stepping assholes who are their base of any responsibility for anything, and move them all forward. And that's Chris Christie and Newt Gingrich. Chris Christie was like the beta test of this. And Gingrich comes along and tinkers with it because he also identifies Joe Biden's the problem and other stuff, and Reagan. Peter King was given a column in the Hill. You might remember Peter King. He's
everybody's given a column in the Hill.
Sure. I haven't gotten mine yet, but I got my Zapodat Miracle. I got my Zapodat Miracle. I don't need another one.
Any right-wing asshole gets a column in the Hill. Yes.
But his solution is citizen before partisanship. Is Manchin the ideal candidate for 2024?
For the Republicans?
For anybody, for everybody. And I'm going to read just a little bit.
Oh my God.
The gutsy decision by Senator Joe Manchin to oppose the Biden administrative's Build Back Better legislation sent shockwaves through the political world. Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And
so this is the No Labels Party. He's going to run for president on the No Labels Party.
I'll just read little excerpts. Because the independent, thoughtful judgment, like that which Manchin demonstrated in making this decision, have become almost extinct in today's politics. Votes in Congress are driven more and more by hardline ideology and narrow partisan politics. The base of, what? What, Blue Gal? Both parties? Allow little room for honest debate and thoughtful compromise. Blah, 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 blah. There's Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill, blah, blah, blah. They even shared drinks together. Did you know that, Blue Gal?
Yes,
Reagan
I did.
And Tip O'Neill used to get dead drunk and bring the hookers in and have just a wonderful time. And it was all very, very... So on the left, you have the full fury of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, Ilhan Omar, and many other people who are very brown.
And
also
very
ladies,
woman.
Very
Yes.
uppity ladies who don't know when to shut up. And, of course, Senator Bernie Sanders. But too many Republicans are in many ways similarly locked in and unyielding. America needs more Joe Manchins in public office. And he goes to the independent patriots who've the proud tradition of Harry Truman, Scoop Jackson, Ed Koch, and Senator Joe Lieberman.
Of course.
Politicians who put country before party. Blah, 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 blah. In an ideal world, Joe Manchin would be an ideal candidate for president, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So they're all looking all looking for
the exit door and the way to frost this shit pile to look like a cake. Yes. Driftglass, John Amato wrote an article at Crooks and Liars this morning that's hilarious about Fox and Friends and how they had a guest on and they were trying to run a scare story about empty shelves and a doomed Christmas because of a failed Biden administration.
Goddamn Biden administration failing us.
They've screwed up the global supply chain. And the fact is that there was a supply chain problem that people saw ahead of time this summer and said, Christmas is going to be fucked if we don't do something. And the Biden administration did something and fixed it.
They did. They fixed it. It worked.
And so they had a guest on. I'm sorry, I don't remember his name, but he was someone in the retail industry expert who came on and said, this is the best Christmas we've had in 40 years. Everything's great. The shelves are full and things are flying off the shelves because people have money to spend and they're spending it on Christmas. And we're really looking forward to probably the best Christmas season we've had in our company's history.
Thanks, Donald Trump. Yes.
Here comes Steve Doocy saying, and now for the news. Yeah. And they just had to abort. Like, you know, the director was making a tea out of his two hands and like, no, cut his mic.
Yeah. Technical difficulties. We're so sorry we couldn't continue the interview.
Yeah. Talk to me about Mona Charen and A.B. Stoddard. I'm dreading this actually, Driftglass. But
it's their brand. This is A.B. Stoddard. You probably, all of you listening, or most of you listening, might know as the utterly flatly affected blonde lady who's on MSNBC at least twice a day, explaining to people
as the conservative voice.
As well, right? She's the practical reporter who's been in politics for a very long time. My husband and I have written books, but she shows up all over the conservative podcast universe.
And these two are the holiday replacement. I mean, look, guys, you're getting original hosts for the Professional Life podcast. For Christmas and New Year's. I want you to know.
This is best of quality, but it's being
original
done.
New content.
Yeah, I would take a picture of myself holding up today's paper if I took pictures of myself and I read today's paper, neither of which I do. So we're recording this today, and you all know I've already said I listen to these people just because sometimes I find something interesting. Yeah. Occasionally, I find a little green shoot of hope when they start doing a little self-reflection, and then once again, we're experiencing technical difficulties. Stuart Stevens has admitted this problem's been going on for 30 years. So, and so Mona Charen and A.B. Stoddard. Mona Charen is sitting in for Charlie Sykes, who's on vacation, talking about they hate the Republican Party. They're very clear about that. The Republican Party is this fascist shithole. They sound like liberal bloggers from 2004 and 5. Exactly. There's no difference. There's no daylight between them, except they don't acknowledge that liberals exist at all, other than to screw things up. Only liberals are screwing everything up. And it is listening with the voice of an outsider to these two extremely accomplished professionals who have been doing this shtick for years, who've been writing books, who are on television because of their expertise, giving two pieces of absolutely self-negating advice, both of which involve Joe Manchin and stupid liberals. So on the first part, Democrats needed to get rid of Build Back Better. It was just a terrible idea. They need to sink it. They need to just give Joe Manchin a box of crayons and a blank sheet of paper and let him do whatever the fuck he wants. Because A.B. Stoddard bragged repeatedly, I've always been on team math. And since Manchin won't back it, you don't have the votes, you stupid libtards. So shut up, bag it, tag it, and move on. Let Joe Manchin do whatever he wants, but the math is the most important thing. If Joe Manchin won't support it, move on. You have no choice. You have
the votes. Move on. Right.
I'm being a cold-hearted, practical conservative, which is something you liberals should learn. That kind of thing. The stern lecture from people who built the fucking monster that is eating the country, telling us that we don't take this seriously enough. Yeah, fuck you. Okay, but that's it, okay? If you don't have the votes, you don't bring it to the floor. If Joe Manchin won't give you the thumbs up, you kill it because then you just look stupid if you bring it to the floor and it dies. Okay. So what happens if Joe Manchin won't back the filibuster carve-out? What happens to the election protection stuff that they're very much in favor of? They're terrified that Republicans are just going to steal elections and we're going to end up in a...
Are you talking about Mona Charen and A.B. Stoddard are terrified?
Yes, they're terrified.
Okay.
They're like, these people are out there right now, and you liberals are worried about people giving people a bottle of water in line. Don't be stupid. That's not the issue. The issue is Republican secretaries of state out there are going to steal the elections unless you stop them. Mm-hmm. And you need to change the electoral...
And on one level, I will say that there is some very serious stuff going on in Texas right now.
Yes.
To literally disenfranchise naturalized citizens.
Oh, this is
serious.
This is not an area in which I disagree with them at all.
Yeah, okay.
I disagree with their mocking of us asking for everything.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But their idea that the Electoral Count Act needs to be amended immediately because there's a big old loophole in there that lets the states basically nullify elections.
Right.
And Republicans will do that. You got to pass this law. Okay, got to pass it. What happens if Joe Manchin won't back a filibuster change?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, now you just said you're on team math, right?
Right.
So if Joe Manchin won't do it, you need to drop it, right? You need to drop this immediately. Oh, no, you stupid liberals. What you need to do is put it up for vote anyway.
But they just said exactly the opposite about
Of course they did,
better.
because it has to be the liberals' fault.
Right.
It has to be the liberals' fault. So if Joe Manchin tells them to go fuck themselves, put it up to a vote anyway, and then lose, and then something.
A miracle occurs, yes.
Well, no, because then they're going to wag their finger of shame at the Republicans, and something will happen. And once again, the people will see that this is, look at the Republicans are evil, because they haven't figured that shit out already over the last 40 years.
Right.
And there's no one on that panel to ask them very simple question like, didn't you just say 45 fucking seconds ago that if Joe Manchin puts his thumb down, you drop it?
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, but this is different. Okay, how is it different? Well, you need to have a moral victory. You need to make it an example of how perfidious Republicans are. Okay, well, let's do that with Build Back Better. No, that's just stupid. It's this constant oscillating, this constant adjusting of their opinions about how legislative processes work and how moral lessons are taught to always make liberals the villain.
Yeah.
Always make the left the stupid ones. Mm-hmm. And I am heartily sick and tired of listening to these people, even though I do it, three times a week.
You do it a lot.
I do.
We have some notes from our listeners that I want to make sure we get into this show.
Fire away.
Joanna wrote us and said, "We are non-believers, but thank you so much for not treating us like pariahs. Mm-hmm. May you have a joyful holiday, and may this time of year give us all hope for the future."
Let's all agree to that.
And I wrote her back and I said, as I've said many times on this podcast, in my book, God loves atheists as his favorite kids.
Mm-hmm. Because they do without
the carrot or the stick of religion, which is what we always say. But they're the kids that grew up and moved out and got real jobs and aren't dependent on their parent anymore. So, Well,
and they chop wood and carry water just like the rest of us. And,
Exactly. So I'm not... I've had to deal with a little bit of bigotry with some of my fellow church members this week. Mm-hmm. I would call it benign bigotry. They're just not aware of how cloistered their white Protestant life is.
Yeah.
That when things come out of their mouth, it's not things like, Jews are evil and they should be converting to Christianity. It's not that kind of blatant hatred, but it's, I wonder how somebody gets through the Christmas season without becoming a Christian.
Uh-huh. Well,
anybody. And I'm sitting there going, I'm in this meeting, right? I'm in this meeting and someone says something like that. And I know they're not trying to be hateful to people who aren't them.
They just don't understand.
They're being hateful to people who aren't them.
And they need a stiff dose of Bible bitch at that moment.
And they get it. And it's unfortunate that they get it. But, I hate creating problems, but I do tend to leave people with their mouths hanging open at the end of those meetings. Mm-hmm.
And then she goes to the whiteboard and says,
I went to Brandeis and I can tell you a thing or two about the experience of Jesus as he went through the Last Supper and the circumcision and the, all of that was in obedience to Jewish law, not Christian law. And I sort of give them a real, that's
it's good. It builds character. It's good for them. It's good for their soul.
I think they hate me at the end of those meetings.
Well, You know what?
Don't care.
You know who else was hated for the lessons he brought to Earth?
Yeah, it's a good thing there isn't public stoning anymore. I'd be dead. Anyway, we love you. Really love you. Okay, and then we got a note from Alan in Canada. Hi, Alan.
Hey, Alan.
Thank you so much for always being there, even though I am sure some days the last thing you want to do is chop wood and carry heavy ass water.
Yeah.
God bless you and yours from me and mine. Thank you, Alan.
Thank you,
and
Alan.
Finally, we got a letter from Susan in Washington State. And she says, BG and DG, here's a donation for whatever you need as long as you keep on podding for the rest of us despondent people. Professional Left Podcast is the weekly salve on the unrelenting burning of this stupid country. I know you hear this all the time, but it's true. We, your listeners, are so grateful for the sacrifices you make listening to and watching mind-rotting right-wing crap so we don't have to.
Mm-hmm.
No wonder you need those high-octane coffees and Nebuchadnezzar-sized bottles of scotch. My contribution is the least I can do. Oh. Love you both, Susan.
Thank you, Susan. I feel seen, Susan. I really feel seen.
The Nebuchadnezzar bottle of scotch. Yeah, you feel seen. We love you all. Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. We'll be back next week to say Happy New Year to everybody.
We're not going anywhere.
Driftglass, what are you grateful for this year?
Well, I'm grateful that the Kellogg strike is over.
Yay! Yes, that is so exciting. And the union won.
Yeah.
And I mean, a couple of people pointed out, and I don't think they were just being, just shitting on everyone's parade. This also brings out the fact that Kellogg's is a huge food monopoly, and that's an issue. How many things you had to boycott was just remarkable. That said, the union won. I think that this is a very good sign for the future that, Gen Z, you've mentioned this before.
Yeah.
Gen Z is the generation whose parents got laid off.
Yes.
Because their jobs moved to Mexico or Reaganomics just took it away.
They saw their fathers cry and their mothers despair. And it didn't get any better.
Fuck it. And their attitude is fuck it. Mm-hmm. Fuck corporations and pro-union and pro-worker.
And in slightly higher tone language, it's, the social contract was abrogated by one side.
Right.
To make money, to make more money for the people running the show.
And I'm really hopeful that in the next while, however long, however that's measured, that shareholders begin to realize that going against the union, instead of make peace with your adversary quickly, as the Bible says, it's a far better thing for corporations and their profit margins to agree with the union quickly. And, safety for your workers is good for your company.
Yes, it is. It's
hello.
And I was involved.
When people notice, when public notices, they side with your customers, side with your workers every time.
Well, yeah,
that's where we're at.
And you can use that to your advantage. If you are a company that respects your workers, that treats them well. I worked with a lot of companies like that when I was working for the city of Chicago who were desperate for employees. This was during a boom, and they couldn't find experts to do that. And part of my job was to build the training infrastructure to get them the people they needed. But it was a reciprocal relationship. They came to us because they trusted us to get people to them who were looking for work.
Who were trained
and drug tested and ready to go. And our job was to get people who had been broken by the system, ex-offenders, people who had lost their home, people who were out of work for a long time, get them, the hardest to serve, ready to enter those positions. And through a whole bunch of means, and one of which was, as I mentioned, opening a high school, which took a lot of money and a lot of effort and a couple of very big failures to start with. And the companies donated a lot of equipment to those high schools because you can't use your factory as a classroom because your factory is a factory.
Right.
There is a model to do this of a virtuous circle of the community, of education, of government, of private business, and of labor all working together to make everyone prosperous and take care of the community and build a sustainable local economy. It does in fact work, but it takes work, and it takes people who believe in it, and it's a long ass proposition. It takes money and time, but it's doable. It's not unsolvable. It just requires a lot of time and attention that a lot of people aren't willing to take or aren't able to take because they're, the vicissitudes of life are immediate. And speaking of time in Chicago, I'm also grateful that someone mentioned Garfield Park today on social media.
Oh, yeah.
Which opened up a whole treasure trove of lovely memories of you and the kids.
Yeah.
Visiting me in Chicago.
I added to your tweet and replied to it. Yeah. Yeah. Remembering that day. Yeah.
Garfield Park, I think it was like late February, early February. It was cold. It was miserable outside. It was a rickety van. We was po.
We were poor.
We were poor. We were straight up poor. I was either moving down here or getting ready to move down here. And we went to Garfield Park with 3 little kids in the dead of winter, and it was glorious. It was warm and humid.
It's a lovely greenhouse full of flowers.
And it was huge. I mean, Garfield Park is huge. It's just room after room of desert plants and succulents and tropical plants and on and on. And they had a little map for a treasure hunt for the kids to go find the tree. And if you find the gum tree, they give you a stick of gum. You find the mint, they give you a little mint. And, youngest child got tired.
And what I remember about that is the 2 younger kids, who are both girls, petered out about halfway through.
Yeah, they did.
And junior dude, who is, a spectrum kid.
Yeah, must complete
the map. And then the following summer, we went and did mini golf, and it was exactly the same.
Yes, it was
exactly the same thing.
Yeah,
18 holes or bust.
Yeah, we went on a cold, windy day. We made it to 9 holes, and we were like, okay, it's cold, and we should all go home now. We all had a good time, right? Yeah, it was fun. No, 18 holes. It says 18 holes on the list here. I go, okay, all right. We'll figure out something. But I'm very, very grateful for finding family and love and the delights of my life long after I thought I never would.
Thank you. I have a couple of things I'm grateful for this year. I am grateful that the pandemic taught Hollywood to put first-run movies at a cost on my TV.
Yeah.
Because once a month, as a treat, you and I, for the same amount of money we would spend to go to the theater, can watch a first-run movie and pause it and use the washroom and pause it and go to the kitchen. And we treated ourselves this week to The French Dispatch.
Oh, yes, we did.
Which is such a wonderful movie.
It is so sweet. It is so loving.
We loved it.
And it's a roman à clé almost. These character types actually existed. I think it was in the New Yorker.
In the New Yorker. It's a tribute to the New Yorker. It really is. It's just, and it's beautifully filmed. I just loved it. And then last month we watched Dune on the small screen. We will get to Dune on the big screen. We will.
We have an episode all mapped out, ready to go, but
we will get to see that on the big screen because I think you really need to.
Yeah.
I'm just grateful for that. I mean, that is a side effect of the pandemic that is a good thing. And then the other thing I'm grateful for, and this lines up very nicely with what you were talking about training people and providing them with the resources to have a job. Many years ago, your old car, Driftglass, got flooded.
It did.
And you got a settlement from the insurance company and went out and with that settlement and not $1 more, bought Little Bertha.
Right.
And Little Bertha was a Ford Freestyle. They were only made for a couple of years. It's a 3-row van kind of thing.
It's the beta version of everything you have in your car now.
Right. And you taught all 3 kids, I think, to drive in that car.
I did. I think
not Junior Dude, maybe.
Yeah.
Junior Dude's a couple years older than Middle Child. So but both girls definitely learned to drive on Little Bertha. And there's a video of Middle Child learning to drive on Little Bertha, and it's linked on our website, ProleftPod. If you want to go watch it, it's hilarious. But during the pandemic, we realized that the only place we go is church, and you go to the store. I don't go to the store. You go to the store. And Little Bertha was just sitting there. I was sitting there a lot, and we pay a lot with 3 three kids on our insurance. We pay a lot in car insurance.
We don't get fleet rate, although we should.
We don't, but we pay a lot for car insurance. And so we were like, we'll get rid of Little Bertha because we really don't. For the two of us, we absolutely don't need two cars.
A tough, functional little car that has 170,000 miles.
Right, it had a lot of miles on it.
Yeah, 140,000 or so. Yeah,
you know, the moonroof had a little bit of a leak in it. Need a little duct tape or seal or something on it, and we'd had work done to it, kept it up, and so forth. But it's a used car, a really, really, really used car.
Yeah, a beloved used car.
Mm-hmm. And so we wound up selling it for $1 to one of Junior Dude's Spectrum buddies from high school.
Yeah. Yep.
And this kid is a great kid. He's definitely on the spectrum. He was one of Junior Dude's basement buddies in high school. Every Friday night, these boys would come over to our house as a place of sanity to go in the basement, play video games, watch videos, and eat pizza. Mm-hmm. And we were...
sometimes crash for the night or two.
Often it was an overnight because they wanted to stay up until 3 a.m. and have fun. And this particular kid really liked to self-medicate with Mountain Dew. I'm just going to tell you, he jumped up that's how he got his stimulant for his ADHD was caffeine.
He knew which gas station in town would let him have free refills of giant Mountain Dew.
He knew a lot of things about how to get Mountain Dew.
Yes.
And when we took him to the movies, we took all of them, all 4 of them to Star Wars, you know, and
Avengers.
He would always want to know, can I get a drink and popcorn? Can I get, and it was just easier to give him a gift card to the theater and say, this is how much you have to spend on, and then it was his own little brainwave working on it.
And sometimes, a lot of times, these were young men who we adore and adore to this day, came from not the most stable households.
Or patient households, I would say.
Right.
Yeah.
So the first words out of one person's mouth every time they visited was, "Can I take a shower?"
Yeah. Can I take a shower?
So
yes, you can.
We were that house for.
We were that house. He wanted to take a shower in our shower. Yes. Mm-hmm. But these guys, you know, got, and I was just delighted as every mom of a Spectrum kid. If your kid has friends, oh my God, you know, that's just a gift from the heavens. Mm-hmm. And I've been watching Rachel Bidikoff on Twitter talk about her Spectrum kid and him bringing home a friend and how much you just dance a jig when that happens. Because, you know, they're not alone. They're not lonely. They have a peer. They have somebody to bounce things off of. And so, you know, Junior Dude had his tribe every Friday night. I think his sisters got a little bit perturbed. Again, every weekend they come. But we were able to give this other kid a car for $1. Mm-hmm. And he got a job as a welder.
Yes, he did.
Because he had access to transportation to get to the factory to work as a welder.
Simple. It was that simple.
Yep.
And as a workforce development guy, I can tell you that a lot of barriers to work involve a permanent phone number, a permanent address, transportation and clothes. You know, it's just the basics that most of us take for granted are the barrier between someone getting a job and someone not getting a job.
And this was the difference between this very smart, a little quirky personality kid, having the difference between working at a gas station and actually having a career.
Yeah.
Hugely, hugely grateful that we were able to provide that. Yep. That wasn't something that I would have expected we would be in any kind of position to do.
Never.
To change someone's life like that. But what a gift. What a gift for us to be able to do that. So yeah. Hey, Driftglass, you want to do a news roundup?
Sure. Let's skip right through, starting with President Joe Biden, who announced this week that pandemic relief for federal student loan borrowers will be extended once again until May 1st, 2022.
And we'll hope for more relief for student borrowers.
Yes, we will.
As we go on. The Biden administration plans to replace all of, and I mean all. When I say all of the bacon, I think you heard me say some of the nation's lead water pipes.
No, all of them.
I mean, all of them.
Mm-hmm.
In the next 10 years, the Lead Pipe and Paint Action Plan will use $15 billion from the bipartisan infrastructure bill passed last month. 10 million household, schools, and care facilities currently get their drinking water through lead pipes. That is just terrifying.
The FDA has permanently lifted major restrictions on access to abortion pills, allowing doctors to prescribe the drugs online and have them mailed to patients or sent to local pharmacies.
Florida man Robert Palmer, not the addicted to love guy, who I adore. Yes. Robert Palmer, late Robert Palmer, may he rest in peace. This is a different Robert Palmer. Florida man Robert Palmer was sentenced to 5 years in prison for assaulting police officers with a fire extinguisher, a plank, and a long pole during the January 6th riot at the Capitol. This is the longest sentence for a Capitol rioter so far. Palmer had argued that he should get a more lenient sentence because Trump has not been held accountable. Nice try. U.S. District Court Judge Tanya Chutkan told him to blow it out his ass, essentially. She was a little more professional than that, but yeah.
My notes do not reflect on her professionalism. let the record show. The National Republican Committee has agreed to pay up to $1.6 million of Donald Trump's personal legal bills. Please don't get Blue Gal started about WinRed this week.
Oh, I found out WinRed takes more money from a Republican candidate than PayPal takes from us.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yep. Well, it's all a for-profit grift. The whole thing is a for-profit grift.
And we don't know what Jared and Trump get from WinRed. That's all, non-transparent in terms of using Trump's names in emails, using Trump's mini blog in their fundraising. I mean, they have a financial deal going to skim off the top. And I had an exchange on Twitter with a Republican woman who was complaining about WinRed stealing her money.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I know you may not believe me as a dirty liberal, but please do your research into WinRed because they're horrible and they're slow bankrupting the Republican Party. And if you care about that, you should care. Mm-hmm. And she replied, I haven't given anything to WinRed since January, which just terrified me because I thought, what did you give in January?
Yeah, just as a side note, I would advise Blue Gal not to help Republicans plug the lifeboat anymore.
I know that, but at the same time,
felt sorry for it.
I hate injustice anywhere. I really do. And I would like to see a day when we can have two sane political parties.
Sure.
And I feel as, in my moral center, watching somebody get robbed, I'm not going to go, well, what's your politics? If I see somebody getting robbed, I want to say something. Now, maybe I shouldn't make a big deal about WinRed, but I think WinRed is ripping off Americans. I really do. And I'm pissed about it.
Let the record show, once again, that Blue Gal is a much better person than I am.
Because he says, slow bankrupt the GOP. Go for it.
Let them dangle, baby. Let them dangle.
They are. I mean, I don't think I'm doing making any difference in that regard. But it eats at my soul to see people having things stolen from them. It really does. The FDA issued an emergency use authorization for the first pill for the treatment of mild to moderate COVID-19 cases in adults and children 12 years and older.
Yeah. This is from the Department of Cause and Effect. Corporate donations to Senator Joe Manchin's PAC surged as he fought to kneecap Joe Biden's agenda.
We have breaking news. Breaking news. Kimberly Potter has been found guilty of 2 counts of manslaughter in the fatal shooting of Daunte Wright.
Yeah. Justice. Well,
yep.
Justice is, I forget who I saw today on television saying justice is restorative and this can't be restored, but this is a step in the right direction. And a just verdict is a good thing.
Let me say too, she had the right to a trial. She had a right to a defense.
Oh yeah.
And she had a right to be found guilty.
Yeah.
That's the truth. Yeah.
Hey, when the justice system works, it is a glorious thing. Mm-hmm. The House committee investigating the Capitol riot is seeking information about Representative Jim Jordan's contact with Trump on January 6th. Committee investigators want to ask Jordan about, quote, possibly multiple communications, unquote, he had with Trump on the day of the invasion. according to a letter from the committee chair, Benny Thompson. Now, this committee is, of course, known in Never Trump circles as the Cheney Commission, because she's the only one on the committee and everyone else is a side actor. But the committee chair, Benny Thompson, is the one who issued this letter.
A judge rejected a bid by former Trump advisor Michael Flynn to block a subpoena for his January 6th phone records. The decision from the court took 1 day.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a feeling.
No. I think they just said, no.
I think it took a minute and they made it a day to make it seem like they gave it a little more thought.
They gave it some more thought. Yeah.
Yeah. This week, New York State reported its highest number of COVID-19 cases in a single day of the entire pandemic.
According to local news reports, the chief of police in Oakboro, North Carolina, has been disciplined for telling officers and troopers about a clinic where they could get a COVID-19 vaccine card without being vaccinated. The police chief, TJ Smith, has been put on unpaid leave for offering fake vaccination card opportunities to officers. In a letter the town sent to Chief TJ Smith, it said his actions violated, quote, personnel policies of fraud and were, quote, willful acts that endanger the property of others and serve as conflicting interests. Also, the governor of New York has made the production of fake vaccination cards a felony.
Good. A Florida FBI informant found, quote, dozens of police officers, prison guards, sheriff's deputies, and other law enforcement officers who were involved with the Klan, including a deputy who paid dues to the United Northern and Southern Knights of the Ku Klux Klan. Anybody surprised? Anybody? No. Is anybody surprised? No, of course not.
I think that's what why this whole freak out on critical race theory is so, people are so receptive to that, is because they know they have family members that are in the Klan adjacent, Klan supporting, and they don't want to talk about it.
Mm-hmm.
A member of the Proud Boys pleaded guilty for his role in the Capitol riot. Matthew Green pleaded guilty in federal court to 2 criminal charges, conspiracy and obstruction of an official proceeding related to the Capitol siege on January 6th. And it'll be interesting to see what kind of testimony they get out of that guy.
Yeah. Sing like a little bird. The House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus announced this week that the Trump administration engaged in what it calls deliberate efforts to undermine the nation's response to the coronavirus for political purposes. Donald Trump lied. Hundreds of thousands of people died, and the GOP is perfectly okay with it.
Donald Trump on Fox News Futures. We have a bigger problem because they have a so-called voting rights bill. Republicans will never be elected again if that passes.
Yeah. Keep saying the quiet part out loud, buddy. The Secret Service says criminals have stolen nearly $100 billion in COVID relief funds.
News from Ontario, a land of contrasts. 1 year ago today, the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit announced the first dose of a vaccine against COVID-19 had been administered in the region to a Barrie healthcare worker. On December 22nd, 2021, the health unit marked the 1 millionth dose of COVID vaccine administered in the region. Dr. Charles Gardner, medical officer of health for the Simcoe Muskoka District Health Unit, announced the milestone during his weekly media briefing.
Yeah, no riots, nobody following people home, nobody saying, we know where you live.
Yeah.
Just competent, qualified,
medical professional,
persistent, patient.
Distributing vaccines.
Yeah. In local news, according to the State Board of Elections in Illinois, Governor J.B. Pritzker has already donated $2 million to Illinois House Democrats.
Ka-ching.
He's running, people. He's running.
He is running. We love J.B. Pritzker.
We do. Best governor.
Each week we post to our Facebook page and website an internet kitty sent in by you, the listeners. This week's we have 2 holiday-themed pets. Chloe, the Christmas-like kitty, and Della, the elf-collared dog. They are all set for the season. And of course, Chloe and Della Eat Freshly Poured Pet Food, our fake sponsor. Whether you serve Pet Store Perfection or Dollar Store Dreck, your pets will sit on the kitchen floor and demand that the food they eat is only freshly poured. Freshly poured, freshly poured. Oh my Lord, it's freshly poured. And you can visit Chloe and Della at our Facebook page or website And you can send your internet kitty, dog, or other pet to us at our email address, proleftpodcast@gmail.com, where you can also write to both of us. Feel free to write us. We love hearing from you. It is not too late to send us a holiday card. We'd love to get it. Don't worry about it. We don't care if it gets here for Valentine's Day. Just, we'd love to hear from you. Be aware that if you write us at any of our addresses, we reserve the right to read your email or U.S. Postal Service. Go Postal Unions! Letter on the air unless you say otherwise. #FireToJoy. I can't believe we still have to say that.
I know, but we're getting there, honey.
We're getting there.
Mm-hmm.
Don't forget our gourmet coffee guideline. Oh, we got coffee this week. Someone in Hawaii, Dexter in Hawaii, sent us coffee. Thank you. It's all gone.
It's all gone, Dexter. It's all gone. We drank it all up. It's all gone now.
We did. It was delicious. I want to thank people that sent us Christmas cookies, which were also delicious.
Yes.
And we got our Christmas stolen from Germany, which was also delicious. Thank you for all the gifties. We had a wonderful Christmas so far. But don't forget our gourmet coffee guideline. If you can afford to buy an espresso-based beverage for yourself, buy one for us. This is not charity. This is our job, and we love our job. Approximately 1% of our listeners support this podcast with a contribution, and you can too. See our website, proleftpod.com, for details. We've got PayPal, postal address information, Patreon, GoFundMe, buy me a coffee. Any way you want to do it, we're there for you. It's all there at proleftpod.com. Please share our show on social media. And if you love this podcast, please, for Christmas, give them the opportunity to listen to.
Do it for the kids. Do it for the kids.
And thank you for doing that. Hey, Driftglass, how are the Internet Kitties doing this week?
Well, sadly, the Internet Kitties had a truly epic outro, all prepared and ready to go for this week, but Senate Republicans filibustered the damn thing. So we'll leave it at this. A very Merry Christmas to all.
Let's think about living. Let's think about loving. Let's think about the hooping and the hopping and the bopping and the lovey-dovey. Let's forget about the whine and the crying, the shooting and the dying, and the fellow with a switchblade knife. Let's think about living. Let's think about life.
The Professional F Podcast is recorded under a Creative Commons license. Copyright 2021 DGBG Productions.